Arvoisat rouvat ja herrat, it's my great pleasure to be with you this morning and to start off with presenting Horizon Europe proposal, and then Jean-Éric Paquet will continue and to speak about where we currently stand with this proposal and what is the state of affairs of interinstitutional negotiations. Now, as already it has been said, the target for Europe in terms of research and innovation has not been met yet. Even if Finland is worrying that the share of research and innovation has decreased in most of the countries, it's not near to that share yet. What could Europe do? Europe clearly could invest and should invest more in research and innovation. And clearly this is something that the Commission with its proposal has done. You can see here a quote by Commissioner Carlos Moedas saying that this is the biggest ever investment on research and innovation that the Commission has put forward with its proposal of Horizon Europe for the period 2021 to 2027, which will be 100 billion euros for the period of 7 years. Now, Horizon Europe will perfectly fit into the research and innovation agenda. Clearly, it will ensure public investment, also by this way stimulating private investment, which we need a lot. And also it will make regulatory framework fit for innovation. And one of the great targets is actually to become a front runner in market-creating innovation. I'll come to that point a bit later. What has been also found out on the basis of different reports and studies is that citizens do not always understand what are the benefits for them. So one of the great objectives is also to bring this framework program closer to the citizens, and to do that via the missions, which will be understandable also for the greater audience, for the citizens. Another point I'd like to highlight is investing in skills and empower universities to become more entrepreneurial. We know that, for instance, Helsinki University has been one of the first ones introducing the curriculum on entrepreneurship, but it's not happening everywhere yet. So this is also something which we'd like to achieve with this program. And finally, creating more synergies within the program itself, but also with other programs. The programs which invest into infrastructure, whether it's digital or transport, also better links with structural funds, which also help to invest in several member states. The proposed budget, as said, is the biggest ever, and this is on the background of the decreasing budget. As you are well aware, one of the big member states is about to leave us soon, also making it more challenging to have a sizable European budget. But on this background, as said, there will be the increase of a research and innovation budget. Roughly half of it will cover what we call global challenges and industrial competitiveness. Then open science and also open innovation. And here you will see the structure of Horizon Europe. For those, and I guess the majority here are familiar with the current program, the structure is familiar to you because it continues to be based on 3 pillars. And that's why it's also being called as evolution, not revolution. Basically, keeping the paths which have been very successful. And one of those is the first pillar, which is open science. And this will continue to be based on excellent science. European Research Council will continue to provide investments for the exchange of researchers via Marie Curie actions, and also provide support to research infrastructures. Only the size will be bigger, because this has been also one of the shortcomings, that there are 4 times as many great projects as there are the possibilities to finance them. The biggest changes will actually occur in the third pillar, which is open innovation. And if we see what are the major challenges that we have today concerning innovation, then we see that Europe is still lagging behind in terms of fast-growing companies. As to the number of startups, we are about the same level as our competitors like the US and China, but we lag behind in scaling up these companies. So there are fewer unicorn companies, so-called unicorn companies in Europe than in our competitors do. Why is Europe running behind? Well, we know we have a big market. We have the single market for which we've been proud of, and certainly it has been our competitive advantage, but still in some respects is fragmented with different languages and different regulations. So also often the regulatory barriers are the ones which hamper innovation. But it's also difficult to grow for the companies, because there is a bit of risk-averse culture in Europe. So the banks are not willing to invest to high-risk companies. There are not that many business angels in the European market. And I guess that also the Finns have come across the same phenomenon, because I know that you have a very active sector in game making. And for instance, one of the very successful companies, Supercell, has been scaling up, but has been scaling up via attracting billions first from Japan, from SoftBank, and then Tencent from China. Now, the objective is to actually make it possible for the startup companies to scale up and grow in Europe. And this is what the Open Innovation Pillar, and particularly the European Innovation Council, setting up European Innovation Council, will aim at. This will be the, so to say, the major novelty, because via now this kind of targeted investments, you can provide not only grants to the startups, but also then invest into the companies via different means for the scaling up phase. Now, the second pillar, which is global challenges and industrial competitiveness, brings together what is familiar to you as the societal challenges in the current program, Horizon 2020. And the major novelty here is that it's much more cross-sectoral, interdisciplinary. And if you look at the names of the clusters, for instance, you see that in digital and industry are in one cluster. And clearly today it's very difficult to distinguish between the two, because digital is everywhere in industry, and physical, digital and data are so much interlinked that it clearly makes sense to actually to bring them together in order to have more impact. And orientation to more impact is also one of the targets. Or if you take climate, energy and mobility, clearly in the transport sector, also the climate targets are very important. or the new modes of energy, whether it be the batteries or hydrogen, for instance. So this is also underlined in the proposal, and the very clear foundation is strengthening the European research area for the Europe as a whole. Also because the European Innovation Council will be the, so to say, the European institution, but it has to play together very well with the ecosystem that is already existing in member states. In quite a few member states, also including Finland, there is already a very good ecosystem for innovative companies. So one of the objectives is also to find better connections there. Now, what are the? I've already started to speak about the key novelties. Now. Just to mention a couple of more, as said, in order to create more impact and be understandable to the citizens, one of the ways is via a few targeted missions. You know that there is currently also discussions ongoing. I know that also in Finland you are discussing what should be the European missions in research and innovation, and from which areas. Well, there are there are quite a few which are on the table. So we don't know what will be the final number and the areas. But just to give a few examples, fighting cancer, fighting child cancer is one of those, which is the targeted ones and clearly understandable to the people, or those which will deal either with clean cities, clean air, clean means of transport, and so on. Reinforce openness, because, you know, in the current program we have 3 principles of openness, also open to the world. And strengthening international cooperation will be one of the underlying features of the new program as well, because without basing our knowledge also on the access to the best researchers in the world is also something which we need to continue to be used in the new program. Now here a bit more about the different areas within the clusters, and finally how the program is meant to work together in order to create bigger impact. As said, it has to go together and work together with different other MFF programs, whether in coherence, in complementarity, in compatibility with those. And I'd like to stop here. Now on the screen you see the next steps in the negotiations, and now I'd like to pass the floor to Jean-Éric Paquet to continue on that point. Thanks a lot.
Good.